Hello and welcome to One More Run, the show about roguelikes, roguelites, and run-based games. This month we have been playing Ball.
Did Joe just freeze for y'all?
Yeah.
There's like a dramatic way to...
We've
We
just
only
been
played
playing ball.
Just been
Only
playing
Ball.
Yeah. Yeah, how's everyone doing? Has everyone been having a grand old time shooting balls?
Love balls.
Yeah.
So the last time I requested game pitches for, run-based games that were very heavily based around physics and things bouncing, and at least one of you pitched Ball X Pit, and you hadn't all played it, and I felt like, given the nature of the show, we need to have all played it because it feels kind of like, I don't know, a classic. I don't know whether everyone thinks it's a classic or not. I guess that's all we're going to find out now. Dan, did you want to describe the game for the people at home who haven't played it?
So Ball X Pit it's like pinball meets Vampire Survivors with like a side salad of Tetris inventory management base building. You're like a little character at the bottom and you shoot balls out of God knows what orifice. The Steam library artwork portrays it as a mouth, but maybe it varies from character to character. You're trying to progress through like a pit full of monsters that are continuously shuffling towards the bottom of the screen in a tightly packed grid formation. If they get to the bottom, they deal a chunk of damage to you, so you don't want that happening much. Your weapon is balls that bounce around everywhere. They damage enemies per bounce, so ricocheting your balls off walls and into gaps amongst enemy lines to get the most bounces out of a single ball as possible is like the thing to do. And to help with that, the pit is vertically shaped like it's straight out of an early Crash Bandicoot level with two walls either side for balls to bounce off. Each level has 3 bosses. Beating all 3 is required to beat a level. However, every time a boss is about to show up, the pit will widen, giving you more room to run around. You have 4 balls that you can shoot out automatically or manually. Pinballing enemies to death drops shiny bits. Your character will regularly pick up enough shiny bits to power up, allowing you to give your balls upgrades, such as delivering poison damage on hit, or splitting up into more balls on hit. Some of these ball upgrades can also combine into a single ball. So if you have a poison ball and a spiky ball, you can combine it to make a spiky poison ball, essentially stacking 2 upgrades into a single upgrade slot, freeing up a slot for even more upgrades. And there's also the base building. When you're in the pit, you'll collect like resources and blueprints, and these resources can be used to build houses in this base, and they improve your stats and whatnot. And so it renders the pit more and more beatable the more you play. So the pit and the base building, very much aid each other. Yeah, the base building also leans heavily into the pinball aspect. You're like allowed to unleash the harvest on your base once between pit runs. A harvest is where you shoot out all unlocked characters out of God knows what orifice again.
Y'all were saying, where do the balls come from? I think looking at the capsule art, they're shooting them out of their mouth, I think. If the capsule art is canon, I'm not sure.
Character though, it doesn't confirm all the other ones.
Yeah, at least for one character.
Yeah, so they're like if people haven't seen the artwork in the game, they're kind of like little chibi characters. They're 3D, but the game has this art style where it looks like pixel art. If you see it in the still, everything has like black pixel art outlines on and like crunchy pixel art textures, but the characters are actually 3D, and they're like little chunky chibi characters. And the way the balls work is you're like firing a constant stream of what are called baby balls, which are like your little silver pinballs that are just generic. And then you have your, like Dan said, your like elemental balls. And they're kind of like your special moves where you're like stacking them and merging them. But you might be firing like 5 baby balls for every like major ball you fire. And the baby balls are like the constant thing. And there are like some kind of builds that you might do that are all about getting as many baby balls on screen, and some builds that are more about like oh, I've got special magic balls that do area of effect things, so I'm going to build into that, because you get like little passive unlocks as well that affect certain things, like, you know, make the balls bounce faster or make the area of effect attacks do more. So there's lots of like little engine building decisions about not just how you merge the balls, but which passives do you choose to synergize best with the balls you're using and all of that kind of stuff. Shen, what was your experience of like the first couple of hours of this game, maybe? Because I think we'll talk a little bit about how it progresses as you go on. But like, what was your opening experience with this for like the first couple of sessions?
I mean, I remember playing the demo for this when we were shopping around for games in the previous episode, and the main thing that sticks in my brain was when I first opened the game. It's like 2 seconds, I guess I'll spoil it. But there's just this giant ball that comes out of the sky, and there's like just dramatic music, and then there's just a pit in the ground. So you're the pit you're going into is the hole that's been left because the kingdom was destroyed by a giant ball. That really sticks in my brain. It's something really funny.
It's called Balbalon. It's the destruction of Balbalon.
Ah, yes.
That sold me too. When I saw the text "Balbalon is fallen," I'm like, I am all in.
And then after that, I think I know people think the word casual is like a derogatory word, and some people use it that way, but this was like this really struck me as like the gameplay difficulty optional in a sense of it. It's kind of casual in that sense of like you can just turn your brain off, but then on the other hand, there's a little more going on. There are some numbers involved in terms of how much damage the balls are doing. The numbers pop up on the screen. You can choose to click for detailed stats, and so I kind of was like, oh, okay, this is like it was like a very focused game, but also with this, I could see why had such a broad appeal, where it was like you could treat it as a casual game and just grind forever if you like grinding, or you could be like, I'm gonna strategize this, I'm gonna shoot the balls in these right ways, or I'm gonna get the right build, or I'm gonna do this or that.
Yeah, it did dawn on me like, oh, there's not too much strategy like that. Like it didn't feel like I was being punished for not strategizing, or maybe I just haven't mastered it yet, and I'm just saying, oh yeah, it you know, you have to grind kind of thing, but maybe you don't have to, and I'm just bad at the game. But yeah, I found that I kind of just zoned out a lot of times and didn't know. Like I would pick upgrades based on like what I hadn't seen yet. Oh, that's an exciting new one. Mm-hmm. Rather than like, oh, what's the optimum thing? And it's just like, yeah, I feel like I wasn't picking stuff because I knew what the best one was. I was like, oh, that's got a big laser. That's fun. I like big lasers. I think those are my favorites, the ones that were like visually apparent, like, oh, they're doing that. There's a lot of them, I think it's like, I don't know what I just picked. I don't know what's even happening anymore. So when you got ones that were like very clearly doing something specific, it's like, okay, great. I like that one. I know what that's doing.
Yeah, I like that aspect of it, because I'm the sort of person that when I'm early on in a game and I don't really understand the strategy, I'll just pick based on theme. I'm just like, I'm the knight, so I'm going to pick all of the spiky metal stuff. Or like, I'm the mage, so I'm going to pick all of the elements. And I start playing like that, and then later on there's room for you to strategize. And it is very driven by discovery, because you've got this so the evolution mechanic where you level the balls up enough, and then when there's two compatible balls that are leveled up enough, you fuse them into a new type of ball. And the way that that's presented in the menu is it's like a black outline of the new thing. And some of them are quite intuitive, like a lightning and a wind will become like a storm cloud that does a particular thing. And then there's another thing where instead of turning ball A and ball B into ball C, which is like a totally new ball that's like a bespoke design that combines these two balls, you can combine any two balls into a new one, and it's just kind of like a recolored version of one ball with the traits of both. So there's like loads of creativity, but I did find that same thing, Dan, like early on in the game for hours, I was just like, I want to see what the new thing is. And then that goes on for so long. Like there's so much stuff. Like I've been playing it for, I don't know how many hours I've got on Steam, but I played a session today and there was still combos that I hadn't unlocked.
Did y'all figure out like what the difference was between the fusions and the evolutions? Because like I know they're like more bespoke, where they have like cooler graphics, but like they're still just combining the two traits. And even the, you know, Fire X big ball or whatever it is. Those were also combining stuff. So I know it's like a mechanic in the game, but I never figured out like what the real difference is between an evolution and a fusion.
I couldn't really judge whether there was an actual power difference, but the bespoke ones tend to like combine the things in a much more like elegant way. And I can't think of
the way I understood it was evolution was like the effect might actually change, but then fusion was like, because you could also fuse an evolved ball with a non-evolved ball, and I'm just like, this episode's going to sound really funny out of context. You just grab clips of people just talking about whack-ass balls, but you can have an evolved ball and a non-evolved ball, and you can fuse them, and it's just like fusion. It seems to be because there's only you can only have 4 different types of special balls at the same time. So part of the point of fusion was if you had 2 max level balls, and you can only fuse, sounds crazy, you can only fuse or evolve a ball that is max level ball.
Yes.
So then if you take, I'm laughing all episode, I'm so sorry. So if you fuse 2 balls, then it saves a slot, basically. It opens a new slot, right? So for example, you had a poison, if you have a damage over time build, right? Maybe you have a poison ball and a bleed ball, and then you fuse the poison and the bleed ball, and so now the ball does both poison and bleed, and you have a new slot to do more damage over time stuff with. So that's how I understood that.
Yeah, coming back to some of the stuff we talked about Voidigo and the weapon system in that last time, it's like an incredibly modular system, and it mixes these bespoke things that have that a little bit more of the joy of discovery because you get to see the new thing. I think it was mixing poison with the laser, and then you get like a radiation ray, which was like they're always combinations that kind of make sense, but some of them you can guess, and some of them, like the theme is like, oh yeah, I didn't expect that. Like you mix the vampire ball, which is a basic ball, with something else, and you get like mosquitoes or something. You get like little clouds of mosquitoes. I like that one.
Yeah, and even the X combinations, like the fused ones, they still did like custom art. Like there's like a, I don't know, like a brood mother ball that looks like a big tick bug, and like if you merge that with a flaming ball, like it looks like a flaming tick. So like even though they had like really cool art for the evolved ones, the regular fusions like still have that a little treat for you as a player just to see what things look like when they get merged together.
Coming back to the pinball reference, for me, that was always how I judge whenever I've played physical pinball tables, which isn't very often because we don't have them very many places. But that's, for me, is like always the judge of the thing that makes me enjoy a pinball table or not. It's like, how easy is it to get multi-ball? Like, how clear is it how to get multi-ball? Because that's like the most exciting, and like for me, 3 lives in a game of pinball where I don't trigger the multi-ball is a failure, and that is either because it's too hard or because I suck. But like that's the exciting state in pinball, is when there's loads of balls, and this allows you to do that with like 40 balls.
Yeah, there's like, it's just like the performance is so good in the game. I know they have it on mobile, and I'm sure it works well there too, but like there's hundreds of balls on screen when you're pretty far in a run. So they're like really digging into the multi-ball joy here for sure.
It also works because there's so many enemies too, and they're small. So it's like you got a bunch of little balls flying around hitting a bunch of little enemies, and they like bonk a little too when you hit them. But thinking about it now, everything's got good feedback. You know, you hit an enemy and it bonks, or this poison turns green a little bit, and then when they die, they kind of like, because all the enemies are sitting in little boxes, actually, which is really cute too. It's not like Vampire Survivors where it's like, you know, like they're all walking towards you. They're all waiting for you in little boxes, and you hit the box, and then they kind of like kind of fall out of the box.
I did really like how, you know, the enemies were designed around the ricochet aspect, and so you start off with like enemies that just a square, but then every now and then someone will come along with like a rhombus base, and it's like, oh, what's going on? Like, you know, you're trying to bounce balls off it, but they're just going all over the place, and so like the shape of the enemy dictates, like, you know, how it's going to bounce off. And you're kind of like planning around, like, oh, if I hit the boss from this angle, it's going to bounce a bunch behind him, and that's going to be great. I really like that.
Yeah, as a developer, like when I first played this game, like last year, when I first saw like the little skeleton guys sitting in their own little boxes, and they like were making up a grid shape, Like it's one of those moments like when you're a game dev and a player, it's like, oh my gosh, it's so straightforward. Like they came up with that idea. It's so clear for me as a player, and I can just imagine how much easier it made development because they didn't have all these like weird collision boxes. It's just like, yeah, they're all blocks or Tetris shapes, and then occasionally a boss has like an angle on it to change it. And it just seemed like a really clear.
It's something that comes out the iteration as well, right? Because like, geez, you shared with us the Devolver trailer that shows the different builds of the game. And the early builds of the game, it's like, it is just a block with a skull in. And you can see that later becomes this little shuffling, like, square stone wall with a little skeleton, and he's shooting you with a bow and arrow. And it's just like, you start with the most, like, functional representation of the thing in the game. And then it's just every stage, it's like, okay, that's the minimum viable product. And it's like, how do we make that slightly cooler? How do we make that slightly cooler? And we end up in this place where you've got these like little characters that feel like they're marching along and coming towards you as an army. I think it works really well. And I mean, we haven't really talked about the level design. I can't remember how many stages there are to unlock, but the game sort of like gives you these different stages. They have different cosmetic enemies. There are some little environmental things that change, like a little bit of ice to slip on, or like hazards that open in the environment. And then you're encouraged to keep going back and replaying the earlier stages with the different characters you unlock, which people might not like if they don't like grinding. And I often don't like grinding, but I quite liked it because it was like, I've got a reason to go back and play level 2, the ice level, with this late game character. And even if I'm just sitting down to play like 2 or 3 levels of it, it forces you to play the different levels again. And then you get the visual variety of going back, which I found just worked very well for me.
They presented the list in a nice way where at first I thought there was only 3, and then I got to the 3rd level and like scrolled down, and it's like, whoa, it's like a lot of games where you think you see the map, and then once you've uncovered the first area, you realize it's way bigger. And then the character pool and everything is just, there's so much content and like replayability.
Does anyone have anything to say about how this game looks? We talked a little bit about tone, because it's got this kind of strange tone, right? With like Bulbalon has fallen and you see this cataclysmic event, but then it's also got this weird nudge, nudge, wink, wink humor where everything is named after balls, and like everything has the this times this formatting. Like the levels are called that as well. The levels are called like the smoldering type times depths, the fungal X forest, the liminal X desert. It's like across the entire game, like the art, the theming, the way things are verbally described, it's this strange mix of registers between like grim dark fantasy and things being really cute and goofy. Did anyone else kind of feel that vibe, or any areas that jumped
kind of going back to what you're saying about the basis of all the enemies? Like it did did give it like a very like tabletop RPG kind of feel, like kind of playing with like little figurines, and I like that. I mean, the presentation of this game, I think, is probably like one of my favorite aspects of the game. Like it's really, really nice style. Like sometimes you'd be looking at the characters, and sometimes the way they're painted, it looked like they were 2D, and then you just turn them slightly, and it's like, it's 3D. How could this be? Oh my god, amazing! Yeah, I liked it. It's great. It's really nice to look at while you're playing.
Tone wise, I got a little. I wasn't like confused by it, but it's like it's presented. It's like very dreary. Like Steam, it looks like a Steam indie game, in 2025, 2026, where it's like a little bit like a PlayStation demake, like those kind of like low poly graphics with big pixels, and the color palette's very muted. So there's some aspects of it where it looks like the game's taking itself very seriously, I guess, but then some of the enemies are cute and goofy, and then some of the language is cute and goofy. So I like the contrast. It was just, for me, it was a little bit too in between, I guess, without them leaning like more serious or more goofy. I like the end result, but our last game, Voidigo, was like, that is a goofy game. Yeah. Like full on.
When we were talking about Voidigo, we were talking about how like the goofiness lets you do more with the mechanics than if you took it too seriously. And this is like a big example of that as well. One thing I noticed about the theming is it starts in relatively generic fantasy type stuff. Like the first level, it's just undead guys, right? They're just like Warhammer little undead figures. And then the ice level. There's like there's kind of fantasy stuff like dragons, and then you get bugs, you get mushroom people, and it kind of works its way up, and then you kind of get into more JRPG territory of like, we're gonna come fight God, and it's not quite God, it's something else. I don't know how much to spoiler, but it's an interesting set of creatures. They wouldn't be like out of place as enemies in like a Final Fantasy Tactics game or something like that, you know, like dark, edgy fantasy monsters, but rendered in this silly, cute way.
Color wise, it's you know, dark and gritty, and when you apply the bleeding effect, you know, the enemies get blood all over them, and it's very cartoony, so you know, but so it's not like graphic per se, but each playable character has a portrait, and like they're all like with a frown or something. It's very silly. We also don't see their eyes.
It's very fear and hunger.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And also the other thing I thought was really, really cool or funny was like we only see the characters' faces in their portraits, but if you try, because I tried to like turn them around while I was actually playing, and I was like, well, I can't turn them around. I'm like, I thought you didn't have to draw their face. I see you doing that. But the music is, you know, it's very modern. It's got a beat to it. Oh, I guess they do kind of have like some sort of orchestral type stuff in it because it's supposed to be dramatic, but because the game mechanics is you're flinging balls around, which is kind of, it looks really goofy. So I think like if the game had gone all the way to like, if it didn't have very cartoony characters, or if it didn't kind of make a little joke here and there, it would be weird to play. It would be very strange to play Dark Souls where you're throwing balls at the enemies. Like that's just like,
I want it. Give me that game. Yeah, the music's this kind of like dark synth. It reminded me a little bit of the Cult of the Lamb soundtrack in some places, where it's this kind of like gothic, slightly witch housey, trippy, trip hop type stuff, but with all of these like slightly cute sounds occasionally. You know, that's the vibe of the music in this game.
I definitely got the Cult of the Lamb impression, because I think there's bits where they literally use like the exact same noise. And I was like, wait a minute, I've heard that before. You thought you could get that past me? How dare you?
I really liked the sound design, like the sound effects, honestly, because this game is so like grindy and autopilot. My music for this game was just YouTube videos that I was watching while I was playing it, just because it's like an autopilot kind of game. But I would say that I really like the sound design, because with how often things are shooting on screen and how often they're going, like none of the sound effects were like annoying and too high pitched. Like they were all like just right for a million collisions a second. And the pickups were just juicy enough. So like I really appreciated the sound effect design of it.
This is the second game where, because you're talking about like, when you hit the enemies, they start showing a lot of blood, and because they don't really have health bars in this, and it reminded me of Bad North, because that had the same thing, like no health bars, but you know the enemies will slowly get more and more blood on them. It's like, oh, they're on low health, and that's pretty much the only hint you had.
There's all of these little micro games that you can engage with if you want to, like trying to guess how much health that enemies have as you're hitting them is one of them, and like there's trying to bounce the balls off of the back and hit them from behind. Shen, you used an excellent phrase for this offline earlier, which was like paying attention is optional. It's a paying attention is optional game, where it's like you can just completely zone out and usually do okay in the game. And then if you pay a little bit more attention, then the game rewards you. And there are some like unlocks and mechanics that make that more and more clear the deeper in you get. And if you've played the game for about 10 hours or something, you'll probably see more of these things.
Speaking of autoplay and like as you unlock characters, there's a character that literally just automates everything. It's like
including picking the upgrades, right? That one.
Yeah, picking the upgrades and also just controlling. And it's like, what's going like what?
Yeah. Do we want to like talk about our favorite characters in terms of like some of the stuff they did and what we found amusing about it? Because the first few you get, they do relatively normal stuff, but they all slightly modify how the game works. Like you get a character whose balls go through the enemies, and then that kind of changes how the game works. And that's like a early one that doesn't change it that much. And then there are some that are more unusual. Like there's one that doesn't shoot any baby balls at all. I think she's called the Empty Nester. She's like a little old lady. And then the kind of deeper you get into the game, the more strange these kind of special rules you get with other characters.
When you're playing normally, it's, you know, you're kind of in practice. What happens is you're stuck only being able to hit whatever's in front, right? Or if you can kind of, if there's an opening somewhere in the middle, then some of the fun of the game is like, oh, if I can just kind of aim the ball just to kind of go into that opening and then just bounce all over inside some opening within, and then that it's fun to watch, even if it's sometimes, if you could screw you over a little bit if you run out of balls because they're all bouncing around in the middle and there's something in the front coming and it's about to hit you. And if he pierces the back and it bounces through the back, then it's then the way you play changes. And I didn't expect that, and I thought that was kind of really curious, just thinking about like how did they come up with this? Like, did someone actually think of this organically, or were they just kind of screwing around with different stuff and kind of be like, like it plays really different if you let the ball go all the way to the back and bounce to the back. The kind of optimal build is actually a little bit different, I think, if you want the balls to bounce around a lot more in the back versus kind of front shooting. I complain about this a lot because I hate it, but like sometimes I see games where it's like starts out fun and there's a core mechanic that's really fun and really great, and then they kind of just stack like all these quote unquote different ways to play that are actually just kind of really obnoxious or just making things way too complicated. And I was really pleased to be like, okay, I'm not getting that that's what they're doing here. It seems like they're really trying to make this more elegant.
Yeah, I think they had a lot of good levers that you kind of see the more you play. So there's like relic upgrades you can get, and they might have things like if you hit an enemy on the left side, it does more critical chance. There's another one that's the right side, but then there's another one that's like when hit from the back, they do more critical chance. So that there's a couple characters I think that do the piercing or they shoot from the back of the line. But you can develop these strategies thinking like you get to have the gamer hypothesis of, if I use this character, I can pierce through all the enemies, hit the back wall, and then I should be buying the upgrade that does extra back damage. And then also you might want to get upgrades that say the ball does bonus damage, but every bounce it like loses some extra damage. But if you're already piercing through enemies and trying to get to the back, you can kind of be clever as a gamer and like stack up and think about all these things. And at first they seemed kind of worthless to me. Like they weren't doing that much. But as you unlock more and more characters, more upgrade pools, you can then kind of like orchestrate these things together to make those like super powerful combos.
Yeah, there's like the big pool of the different balls and the different passives, and having those characters operate in such different ways, like you say, it does create these like unique little puzzles of like, how do I maximize how this character works? And then you also get the thing that allows you to use two of them at the same time. So then you're like, how do I combine the two in the best way for like the level that I'm on? And then you've also got like a checklist of who have you completed each level with. So you want to like use the people you haven't used on that level yet. I'm a big fan of the shield guy. He's called the shield bearer. It's like a
I was gonna bring him up if you
were. No. I mean, tell us, Dan. He basically like gives you a breakout paddle.
Yeah, like I think when I first saw this game, I was like, this is going to be like Breakout. That's fun. I like Breakout. I played that all the time back in the day, and then when it wasn't quite like Breakout, I was like, oh man. But then when I unlocked him, and he's like, he holds a big shield that basically bounces everything back in. And I was like, hang on a minute, this is the Breakout guy. Hell yeah, I'm gonna play the shit out of him. And sure enough, like he's like by far like my most leveled character, because like once I unlocked him, I was like, I don't want to play as anyone else now. This guy's the best.
Because he adds something that changes how you move around moment to moment, right? Whereas some of them it's like more how am I aiming, whereas with him it's like, okay, I can max my balls by like, instead of catching them and like recasting them, I can just keep them on the field by bouncing them. So it's a little bit more it's a little bit more action oriented, whereas some of the others it's like it changes how you think about the space and about your power-ups. So the way that the different characters are designed, I'm sure that they just designed them all in the abstract, but by just like breaking a rule and then like, what's the theme for this afterwards? But there's a really good mix of like what they do and how they change the game in different ways.
And it helps the variety too, right? Because you can choose how you want to interact with it. So there's that cogitator and the other one that kind of autoplay, the shield bearer that gives you extra. You're more actively playing when you're that shield bearer character. So it kind of helps the run based setup of the game where you want to go back in and you're more willing to do something else and play it a little different. My favorite, you brought it up, Joe, is the cohabitants that look like the American Gothic couple with the pitchfork.
I really like those too.
I just noticed now that all the characters, when you said no eyes, like they have like eye holes. I didn't even realize that. They've just got like voids where their eyes should be. But yeah, there you can pick 2 characters. So when you pick them, you have the cohabitants, but then you can pick any of the other characters to go with it. Actually, not any. I think they restrict a few, but most of the characters you can combine. The catch is that like they do. The balls deal half damage, I think is what it says, but the aiming is
they throw double of everything, right? They throw double of everything, and one goes to where you're aiming, and the other goes to the mirrored side of where you're aiming.
Yeah, so it just leans into the ball chaos, where like you don't have to be that active when you're them. It's just like you might want to lean into baby balls and AoE, and it just amps up the number of stuff on the field where you're not really as engaged when you play with them. Did
everyone get to the point in the game where they'd unlock the tactician?
I did not.
So like this is one of those things where like, well, at least with the shield bearer guy, it's like, oh yeah, I can kind of expect that they would put a character in like that. But yeah, when the tactician came up, it's like, this is now a turn-based game. It's like, what?
Yeah, so it changes the game so that the enemies stop, and then you choose an aim, and it
crazy.
It becomes like if you ever played like Buster Move, but you shoot all of your special balls and baby balls in one go, and they all bounce, and then the enemies move, and that's how the tactics.
I would love that.
But the thing that I found that kept happening after I'd unlocked the tactician is because you're playing the game so slowly. You're going back and playing the earlier levels because the game is telling you, hey, go back and play the earlier levels with the new characters. That's kind of how it's structured. And then I would notice things from the earlier levels that I'd played like 20 times already, that because of the slowness, right? So there were the two things I noticed was, one was you can shoot enemy projectiles, and when you do that, your balls bounce off them in different angles, so that can be advantageous sometimes. And I hadn't noticed that organically before that point. And then I'd also noticed that like little things like on the ice level, the characters have these ice shields, and I just thought they were decoration, and I didn't really pay attention to them. But you can like deliberately use them to bounce off of that character more and hit the other character that you're trying to hit if you're like fighting a boss or something. So I think the kind of broader game design thing that made me think about was, as you like unlock content in your game and you give the player more tools, whether it's like new weapons or new characters or whatever, how you can use that to like draw attention to other things in the game, or re-tutorialize or recontextualize other things in the game.
I was just going to say about the tactician, like what I've noticed about this in the past few games we've played is they have a few modes where it's like a developer flag. Like I'm sure a lot of us have like put features into a game just trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. And you've got some like ancient code in there that plays another way. And it's a nice opportunity to be like, well, we've learned that people don't like the turn-based, and the way to go with the game is real time, but it lets them like sprinkle that back in. If maybe I'm making assumptions here, but it's nice to like give a slightly different experience without like making a totally different game or something. And Voidigo is doing that with the challenge rooms, I think, in a few places.
Yeah, there's one character that none of us will have used in our time. I don't know if anyone's seen it on the list. I see you've got the list up, Cheese. Have you had a look at what that character at the bottom does? This is a great hey devs, if you keep emailing streamers and no one wants to play your game, maybe you need to do this. It's like a Twitch mode where I guess the Twitch chat get to vote on all of your like upgrade choices. It doesn't actually say on the wiki, but it's a Twitch specific character.
That's cool. I mean, it wouldn't apply to me, if I'm not streaming, but I mean, I think that's a pretty neat integration, I guess.
I think it's probably worth crediting with a little bit of the success of the game though, right? Because if you think of how many games are getting sent to like every streamer out there that never get a reply and never get played, and it's like, you've got to give people a reason to stream it. And the reason to stream it most of the time that people are going to listen to is it's already popular and people want to see more of it. And that doesn't work if you're not already popular. So like, what are you doing to make it a Twitch game? And sometimes that can just happen through content because people want to see you pet the cat or something, but you can like force it mechanically by having a Twitch mode. And hey, they did that here. I don't know who played it, but
yeah, it looks like they added it after release, or it's like October of last year. I mean, definitely after success, because this game was like super successful. So maybe they were responsible, and didn't put this in like as one of the first enemies. Is it worth a segue into the building stuff?
The base building of the game. It's like, so normally you are throwing balls at things, and then and then when you lose, you go back to your base. And the base is it's like top-down view, and it's like there's a little grid. You start out with a kind of a small grid, blank grid to work with, and you can place you can place either resources. I think there's wheat, stone, and forests, and they give you wheat, stone, and wood. And you place them on a grid, and the funny part is that the way you harvest stuff, it doesn't start out automatic. I didn't know what to expect when I clicked that harvest button. I had placed some wheat, I guess, and maybe a building. And so the characters have houses, and you have to construct the houses to unlock the character. And so I click harvest, and I'm kind of confused for a second, kind of like, nothing's happening. I'm like, oh wait, why is there's a pointer now? There's like a bubble breaker type of pointer, right? Like, or the same thing that you normally have when you're playing the ball busting ball pit part. And there's like a character. I'm like, what the heck? And I was like, am I aiming? Like, why am I? And it's like, oh, the base is also pinball. What the heck? Holy crap. And like part of me was like, oh my god, this is gonna hurt my brain because I'm too lazy for this. But also I was like, this was like thematically the only acceptable way to set up the base.
I feel like if I was still sort of doing like college teaching of game design, I would end up using this as a like recurrent example, because it's such a good example of like reward and investment loops. Like you play the game, so it's a really common like design pattern you'll get shown when people talk about gameplay loops. It's like you play the game and you get a reward, and then you put the reward somewhere, and then the thing that you got with the reward motivates you to play the game more, right? So I spend my money on a new weapon, and now I'm like, oh, I've got a new weapon. I want to see what it does. I've never had an ice sword before. I wonder what that's like when you freeze stuff with a sword. And it's doing that in a very clear way. But yeah, the fact that it is basically, I mean, it's the same like physics engine, right? It's the same mechanic that's being used. So it's just such a cool thing. And you're basically building your own little kind of pachinko grid with your buildings, and you have to bounce on the buildings to actually build them in the first place. Yeah. They have like a little completion grid, so you see the building getting built like you're playing like some old like Age of Empires RTS, and you have to do the bounces to build the building, and then some of them do things when you bounce off them like forever. So the way I ended up building it is you have certain buildings that are finished and they never really need to be bounced off, so you can like push them to the edge. And then you have other things like, I think it's the church, when you bounce off it, it extends the timer for all the characters bouncing around. So it's like, I kind of want to hit that every time. And it's such a neat system. It's really cool.
You all had much more beautiful bases than I did. Mine was just like, I don't care anymore. I'm just doing this and that. And you can't do the crap anymore.
I think what you're saying, Joe, about the loop, like it's not just that you earn some currency in the game and then you want to like build buildings and then you get more stuff. The fact that you upgrade or build a building and then you play a tiny game, like it's only 5 or 10 seconds. Yeah. When you do that and you introduce this like chance that you may or may not finish a building or may not get XYZ, I feel like that's just enough hack in my brain to make me be like, I might as well play this new character I just got. Yeah. Where if I had done the interaction of building a building and then immediately getting it, I wonder if that dopamine or whatever brain chemical everybody says like would have been enough to make me play again. But just that I had that little bit of like not RNG, but like unpredictability in there, I think is like even more to pull me back into the game.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's actually a mini game is really powerful. And I think of all of the like kind of classic RPGs and dungeon crawlers where it's like you're playing a game and then you go back to the town with all your loot, and that part of the game is mostly just menus, you know? Again, it's another good example of the goofiness enabling stuff that you wouldn't be able to do if you were just like too set on doing like a simulation of a particular type of thing.
There's also a real-time mechanic to it too, which was also a funny touch, because at first I thought it was like, oh, like, okay, like whenever I die, I just go back to the base. And I was thinking how it kind of led to this result where, like, say I had just had a horrible run, I died in like 2 minutes, because normally it runs at, I think the game itself even estimates a typical run at around 15 minutes. And let's say I had died a minute or two in because it was butts. I'm like, well, and I was like, well, that means that if I die earlier, I get to go back and do base stuff more frequently, because you can only harvest once, kind of, essentially harvest once between runs. And then I remember going back after having a horrible run, and then I was like, wait, some of my wheat has not grown back yet. My trees are still all cut down. And I was like, oh, there's a real-time component. So if you like upgrade the individual, the trees or the whatever, they do actually give, like, I think it'll be like every few minutes or so, or several number of seconds or so, they grow back. Or like the auto harvest mechanics are also, it's like every few minutes or something, you get some amount of wood or something. And I was like, that's an interesting touch, actually. So I guess that means you can't just kill a run and then just go back to the base and kind of grind that way.
Yeah, they're doing some stuff behind the scenes, because I noticed, like, when you, like Shen was just saying, when you do a run and come back, it'll regenerate. But if you start a run and quit it immediately, it's like only partially regenerated. But if you do your harvest and then close the game, which you're crazy if you don't do that, you got to do the little pinball action before you quit the game. But then when you load it up again, you've got another harvest to go, because I'm guessing they're checking some difference in time. They waited long enough. Like, go ahead and do a new harvest. Yeah. And I think it's just enough. They could have been mean about it. In your save file, you had just harvested, so go play the game. But I think that's just another, like, a player courtesy, quality of life thing, but it also just makes you, it helps you get sucked back into the game again.
I don't know what I did with my game, but for whatever reason, I've just ended up with like 9,000 wheat and like not much wood, stone, and money, and I don't really know how I've managed that, because I did like build up my base thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna optimize my wheat harvest. I was just building as I unlocked stuff, and I can put that down. I'll upgrade that now that I got the money. And I just, for some reason, I've just got just way too
high
much
fiber ball pit.
It's like I don't know what to do with it. I think there's things where you can like trade wheat for trade things for another thing if you get the building, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean the base building bit, I think one of the things that it's easy to miss is that it's even using the language. It's got some kind of conventions from sort of worker placement board games. They call them, they refer to them as workers. So when you've got your little characters that you shoot out, and they're themed to look like your characters from the main game, but they, in this context, they don't really do anything different from each other. And in a worker placement board game, it's like you place them on specific places and they do things, and it's got a little bit of an element of that, because some of the houses have slots and you put them in those slots. So I think that it's obviously kind of taking some cues from there that aren't super obvious, just because worker placement isn't really a video game genre, right? We've seen other genres kind of come across from tabletop, and that's just not really happened there. But I think the last like digital worker placement game I played was something like This Is the Police. I don't know if anyone's ever played that.
The last thing that I really like about the base building that a few of these games do well is you can just move things around freely, and the game encourages you to. So every time you want to build a new building, it goes into this building status, and if you want to upgrade one too, and then you need to like get your little harvesters to bounce off of it to build it. But when a building's fully built, most of them, there's no real value in having them be bounced on. So depending on how much space you have, you're often going to be like refactoring your base, like getting a nice setup. Oh, I want to build this new building, but it's huge and stupid shaped, so I need to move a bunch of stuff around. And I like that in a lot of recent games, where you get the kind of like the refactoring itch you get from a Factorio or something, but it's just so much more simple. You're not building a big pipeline, but you're constantly having to just get in there with a wrench and move things around. And I think that's pretty satisfying. Yeah,
you can the characters get different passive benefits in the town. And then there's like a thing you can do to re-roll that, so you can go back and pick their levels again. I haven't really engaged with it, but it's just kind of an example of like how many mechanics there are that let you keep tinkering with the machine of how your town works.
I think at one point I managed to get like I think I got one of the workers stuck in like a tiny little like 1x1 square. They were just like bouncing so much. It was great. I've never managed to do that again, but it's fun that like even though it's like a very tight grid, like all the buildings like boxed in, like there's still a little bit of room. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but you can still like have a worker like just sneak in between the buildings at like a diagonal angle if you get it just right, and then they'll just get stuck.
Bouncing forever in there. So is it possible to just leave the game running and just harvest stuff that way? It is. Yep. I did not try it. Did you?
There's a couple of buildings that you can put them around wheat or put them around fields, and they have a little bar, and it's like every 9 minutes. So there's a couple times I was like, well, I'll just leave it up while I'm doing something else, and then I kind of felt like I was cheating. I think other people might like enjoy that type of. It's the incremental game thing where like let people do the dumb thing if they want, because ultimately it's just a video game. Yeah, you can.
It is like when I think about like leaving the game running, it does remind me of like that's the kind of thing you do when the game is taking the piss, and you're like, well, screw you, I'm going to leave it on overnight. But yeah, it's definitely not something that I really think to do. I guess I just respect the game too much. It gets all my attention.
There was an old Bullfrog game called Syndicate, and I remember being a kid, and you could like spend more money on research to speed it up. But like as a little 9-year-old, I was like, and I would use the minimum amount of research and just go to bed and wake up in the morning and have like the most upgraded thing or whatever. So it feels really good when you learn it yourself and learn how to hack the game, I guess.
We've got a little kind of sidebar here that we haven't done before because we thought it would be interesting to get some thoughts on the game from folks who'd already played it in the community. This was set up kind of like almost like a book club, but for games, and we were kind of hoping people in the community might play along with us each month. So yeah, we put the call out to see if anyone had anything to say about the game.
Yeah, we got a few, and I'm going to read a couple of them here. So from one of the developers of Resurface, he says, the completionist side of me wanted to unlock all the characters and beat all the levels with them, and that visual check mark when beating a level with a character is such a small addition that makes a huge difference. Each run felt different enough to keep going, and it was fun combining balls to find unique mechanics.
Yeah, for me, like that, the check mark did a lot, I think. Like, even though I'm not a completionist, as I was picking characters and seeing the next run, especially with that American Gothic looking couple, it was really helpful to see like, oh, I've already beaten this, level with this person. I should pick somebody else. And it was really driving me to like mix up my game more and definitely wanted me to keep going.
I don't think we talked about them before. There's those little statues that are like, for every character you defeat the boneyard with, you get this passive bonus everywhere else. And I knew I wanted to complete the levels with as many people as possible because you level those things up. But yeah, without that little kind of UI feature of the tick boxes for who you'd done each level with, I wouldn't have been able to do that, and I wouldn't have been bothered to work it out myself. So yeah, it's a good motivator.
Yeah, agreed. I think it definitely, I definitely had the same feeling as this person described here. We also got another neat insight from Dugomite. So Dugomite says, the town building and resource gathering mechanics are what hooked me. I really enjoyed setting up situations for getting a ball trapped in a corner area and seeing the resources ticking up with each bounce. Then that just got more and more interesting as the buildings and character powers encouraged me to tweak the layout to maximize everyone's powers. It was a great system with no real wrong answers, just lots of ways to lean into different efficient combos. Unlocking all the buildings and perfecting my layout was the reward that hooked me.
Yeah, I wonder how much the trying to get the town exactly right was like a point of frustration versus enjoyment for different people.
Yeah, for me at first, I was kind of frustrated by it at first because it was just so slow to like harvest stuff. But after I got into the game and I realized that like, oh, I can try again after just like one quick little run that's going to take 2 or 3 minutes or something. it was much more approachable for me. And I think having that little bit of friction of, hey, you can't just reorganize it, reorganize again, run it again. You have to play another level. I think that just, it bumps up the value of like, oh boy, it did what I thought, after I had a little bit of, there's a little bit of consequence in getting it right, because you got to wait a few more minutes for the next time you can try.
Yeah, I think it was both for me. Because I mentioned earlier that I had found the base building sort of not necessarily overwhelming, but I definitely could tell that there was a lot to be done that I was too lazy to do, but I appreciated that it was there. All right, well, thank you everyone for sending in your thoughts about Ball X Pit.
We've got a note here on the list about grinding cheese. It feels like there's a bit of a segue there. So did you have any thoughts about how grindy this game is, and like grindy games in general?
Yeah, well, I've been saying positive things about it, but I don't think this is my kind of game. Like I kind of bounced off of it. Yeah. I definitely got more into it the more I played, but I just didn't like how at first I felt like I was making the right decisions. Oh, I have this character with baby balls. I'm going to get the upgrade that multiplies them. I'm going to get blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And I would just lose a run. Like it would just ultimately crash. It would slow down. I'd be overwhelmed and I'd lose. And then it's just like, oh, guess I got to play 10 more times to upgrade myself. And I do like that they give you like a 4-time speed boost, but I'm just not a gamer who's like on the wave of a lot of these recent incrementals where you just need to keep playing it over and over and over again. That being said, the game is super popular and people love this stuff. And I totally get it, but I just, I think the game respects my time. For me personally, I don't super love games where you have to play it 20 times to get the right amount of upgrades. And I don't know. I didn't feel like I was always making the most skillful decisions either in the levels. Like it certainly helps sometimes to slow it down, but it felt like the reason I lost runs was just I haven't upgraded enough. I haven't gotten the right characters enough. And
yeah, I definitely had a similar sort of experience, like feeling like, oh yeah, this is a bit repetitive, and like sort of, oh, I guess I'll try again now that I've leveled this up once or twice. Yeah, like I had a similar feeling to that. Yeah. Although it was funny when you were saying like, I didn't like, it wasn't really for me, blah, blah, blah. But this game is really popular. So I was expecting you to say, but it is really popular, so I like it.
I changed my mind accordingly. Now I find this game very work-like, and I do really like it. But I don't know. I maybe I just played it longer, but I don't have a very strong memory of finding the early part of the game difficult or losing a lot. And I don't know where that difference came from. But also, there's a good chance that I did, and I just wiped my brain of it. But I do feel like I historically don't like grindy games very much. I don't like games that feel like they're built around like you must do this repetitive thing, and then we're going to reward the amount of time you spend with your power, which is why I kind of fell out of love with kind of traditional JRPGs like Pokemon and stuff like that. I think the difference with this is that I just do like the base activity of moving around and aiming, and like I've not. It's weird because it's a bullet heaven, right? It's much more about your damage output and the mathematics of your damage output rather than like, can you dodge the enemies, which is what bullet hell is. It's like, bullet hell is like so kind of fragile and easy to lose. And I think I like that feeling of like, I'm playing a shmup, but I'm not going to get killed by the first thing that hits me. And I think because I just like that core action that I'm doing for most of the game, all of the like grindy stuff just sort of sinks into the background and is just this nice little treadmill of rewards. But it is incredibly slow to get all the stuff, and if you don't find the main thing you're doing like enjoyable to do, then it's probably going to be too slow for anyone, really, I think.
Yeah, I think earlier on it felt more grindy because I think later on you started unlocking all the more exciting varieties of like characters. Yeah. And I think that really helped offset the sense of repetition in the levels. Because I'll try this character that shoots from the back. And I think that the other one that was like, that basically just wraps around the entire thing. So like they'll just go out the back and then come from behind you, so you can just loop stuff around. And yeah, the variety of the characters was like really a real strong point. So I think that helped alleviate that feeling of grinding like later on.
I did a lot of my playing of this game with it on my laptop with a controller, and then while I was doing something else, I'd be like watching TV and playing this at the same time. And I think that's probably why I found it very easy to like just end up with this big time void of like, I look at Steam and it's like, how have I played this game for this many hours in a month?
I guess like worth noting is that it's one of the like the most popular Steam Deck games, and I don't know if it's like the best, but it's like in their top rankings, and it was certainly splashing when everybody was getting their hands on one. So I can really see how it complemented it well. Of you're sitting on your couch doing something else, and it's just kind of like an idle game to mess around with.
Because like you said, you really can just turn your brain off and just wiggle your thumbs around, and like it might be fine. And especially because the upgrades are permanent, so I can kind of see why like they've set it up so that like I think it is objectively grindy in that sense, but that's also why it's such a good kind of like casual, but it tickles a lot of people's brains clearly. But it makes sense to me why like the kind of permanent progression would feel very slow, which would result in like, for someone like Cheese, who's like understandable, like you want a game where like you don't have to have had to do all this grinding to quote unquote be good at it. You kind of just you really enjoyed Voidigo. You really enjoyed a game where you could just, if you have the skill, you get to be good at it, right? And I think just mathematically, I don't think this game lets you do that. So I can see the kind of like trade-off in kind of design a little bit, because I always get really curious when devs make these decisions like this, if it was kind of deliberate or if it was kind of just their own taste or something. Because the lead developer, Kenny Sun, from his website, it seemed like he started out doing a lot of mobile games. He probably plays a lot of mobile games. And like I also play a lot of mobile games. I used to be doing gacha dailies for like 6 gacha games at a time. So I'm like, oh yeah, give me the grind.
Take my gem.
Yes. And so it's, I think, I can understand that kind of trade-off of people who are willing to have that grind and enjoy that slow kind of thing and stuff, versus people who don't want it.
There's this thing I've been thinking about a lot recently with the recent like wave of hype around incremental games, which I find personally silly because they've been consistently popular for about 15 years. And it's basically like dudes that don't play casual games rediscovering that casual games exist and like accidentally designing one and then being like, oh, did you know that video games that don't require you to like practice much skill actually have a bigger audience than the ones that do? And then like being surprised by that. And there was so I mean, this is a casual game. I think that's why it was so popular. I also think it's part of why Cheese is bouncing off of it. There was a really good essay by a YouTuber called Izzy recently called Cozy Games and Misogyny, where she talks about this, where it's like there's this stigmatization around casual games and calling games casual games, and then generally gamer bros being like negative about certain types of games and then being casual, and how that's somehow destroying the entire medium. And then she goes into this segue about how there are entire genres of games that are actually just like casual games for dudes. So like I feel like this is what that is. It's got all of this grim dark comic book wrapping, and then it is basically you've got a base building that is just like Farmville and a pachinko machine. And the example she uses is something like American Truck Simulator, where it's like that's not like a game that rewards skill. You just chill out and you drive a truck for a little while. I'm sure it's difficult when you're first learning it, but it's so it's just. There's this trade-off with casual games where they're not about rewarding you like being focused and exercising loads of skill. They're much more based around like just rewarding you for playing them for a long period of time, and that causes them to artificially inflate how long things take,
Yeah, I mean, all of that said, I do think I'm not taking back what I said, but I am going to contradict what I said in the sense that I honestly, when I was playing it, I was thinking. Actually, I remember when I would play it. I think there would be times when I'm turning my brain off, and I think if I'm thinking about a run, I think I would maybe start out kind of be like, okay, this is a new character, and I know in theory this is how it's supposed to work, and I'm kind of bouncing the ball around and kind of seeing what happens. So I am paying attention in that way. I'm observing, but the kind of mechanical, like, I'm kind of just spamming whatever, walking around. I'm just walking around and be like, oh, I have to get this jewel, I have to get this XP or this health or whatever, and then my mouse is just kind of wiggling around, and then sometimes I'm just kind of like, I'm lazy, I'm just gonna sit there, I'm just gonna leave it alone for like a second because the balls are gonna bounce around at an angle. I'm just gonna like eat my snack real quick, and then like a mini boss would come, and I'd be like, oh crap, time to lock in, time to be like, oh god, how do I like aim and everything. So I would be paying. I think for me in a run there would still be a kind of like a up and down of like paying attention, not paying attention, paying attention, not paying attention. So that was like the first bit that I'm going to contradict myself with. And then the second thing I also going to contradict myself with as a person who has played way too many gacha games is that I do actually think I like casual and non-casual or whatever. I don't think it's a spectrum. Everything's a spectrum, guys. But the others on the podcast have heard me like yap about Arknights like so many times. But I'm gonna bring up Arknights because it is a gacha game, and I think the specific reason I bring it is because I think it's a really good example of a casual game where with that kind of optional difficulty, and this applies both to the original Arknights and the new Arknights. I think where there is depth if you look for it. You can actually like if you go and like look at people who are playing like pulling these crazy runs. It's like the original game was a twisted tower defense game because tower defense is half you sit there and don't do anything, you just watch, you observe, right? Like with ball pit, right? You're just observing the balls bouncing around, and then the other part of it is like, oh crap, time to put down my units. Oh crap, time to think really hard about the strategy. And with Arknights and also Ball X Pit, both of those games have those real-time moments because the thing with Arknight's tower defense is that it's not like a wave by wave. Like it's not like a wave comes and you place your units. It's like a live, like 2-minute. The units are coming and you're placing them as they come. So I kind of view that type of casual as a kind of, again, it's optional, but I think there is actually still a lot to think about. And I think for me, you know, sometimes I want to play my quote unquote crappy casual games that I've played too much time. And sometimes I want to pay attention, but I think there is a way to create a game that, I don't know if you want to call it the best of both worlds or something.
Yeah, it's like trying to have a game with a low barrier to entry where you don't really have to think to just play the game, but there's like kind of skill expression you can do. Like in this, it's the moments where you're just catching exactly the right angle to bounce the ball in the right way to hit the certain thing loads of times and send it around the back so it bounces off everything. And those moments are optional, but they're there if you look for them. It's really satisfying when you find them, but they're also fleeting because everything in the game is like constantly moving and you can't keep it optimized perfectly all the time.
There is one thing that happened to me quite a few times, mainly early on. I don't know if this happened to anyone else, but there'd be times when I would shoot a bunch of balls and they would just get so caught up in a bunch of enemies that like I would be going quite a long time without being able to shoot any more balls. So there'd be like enemies coming up to you right at the front row, and it's like the balls would come back any minute, surely, but they would all be just bouncing around at the top, and it's like, come back! I need you right now. I need to shoot more balls at this guy right at the front, but they just get stuck at the top. Maybe there is a button where you can just bring them back, but I don't think I knew.
I didn't experience that because I had auto fire on like 90% of the time, and I rarely turned it off. And I think that's a good example of like sometimes the optionality kind of catches you out, because I never really experienced that, and I think it was because the auto fire like staggers things so that doesn't happen.
That's the thing. Like I had auto fire on as well. Like I generally used it for the vast majority of the time, but because you know you only shoot the balls until when you've got them back. Yeah, you know, it's like a boomerang, and they just weren't coming back because they were just so busy killing a bunch of enemies at the back, which is very productive, all well and good. But when you've got enemies right at the front, particularly a boss, and you need to get rid of them now, it's like like, why is this happening? It felt like such a stupid way to lose a run. It's like that's supposed to be like a really good shot because it's bouncing off so many enemies, but because it meant I couldn't shoot any more balls, it resulted in a game over. It's like what? I thought I was playing well.
Just to circle it back, like I do think that this game, it's just it's player taste and genre, right? And I think this game is like doing exactly what it needed to do with the, you know, Vampire Survivors like stuff. It came in at the right time. People love it. So I don't know. I just think it just reinforces that different games are for different people.
Yeah, I think one of the things I felt when I was playing it is that I haven't had a game since Vampire Survivors that really got me like Vampire Survivors, and I felt like this did. And I had a similar thing. I was talking to someone who's making like a Balatro inspired game, and we were talking about how, if someone liked Balatro, then their goal with a new game isn't for it to be like exactly the same core mechanics as Balatro with different content. Because the thing that made them enjoy Balatro was like the kind of mastery journey that they went through and like the way it made them think. So if you just have like a reskin of the same core mechanics with a few bits of content changed, that's not really going to do the same thing for them. And I remember feeling this with, if you go back to like old Final Fantasy games, for example, they always had a very different core system for each game. And I remember thinking like years and years ago, why do they do that? And it was like, well, because you enjoy learning the system. Like, obviously there are people that play those games for the story and the world, but like the mechanical side of it is, you want the system to be different each time, because if it was just like Final Fantasy VII is the same as Final Fantasy VI, blah, 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 you're not learning a new thing. And like those of us who like strategy games or like tactical games want to learn a new thing. And the thing that worked for me here is it scratches all the same itches as Vampire Survivors, but the core activity that I have to learn to do and the kind of economic systems in the game that I have to understand are very, very different. And I think that's an interesting thing of like you have to give people the same like experience at a very top level, but using different components at the bottom level. Otherwise, it just feels like a clone.
Yeah, I think there could be a pretty interesting chart for Vampire Survivor likes with like grinding and progression and player agency and player choice and consequence, whatever. Because like I really like Deep Rock Galactic Survivors, which is a Vampire Survivors like, I'd say. But in that game, like I like it just because if you don't actively engage with the game, you will lose. So like you have to constantly focus on it, make the right decisions, and keep moving your character. Whereas in this one, I feel like I could just turn my brain off. And the decisions are more about my base I'm building and things like that. So
yeah, it's an interesting balance. So I feel like we've touched on most of the points. So I guess we can get ready for what we're going to play next time. We've got a slightly different format coming up, which I think is going to be fun. So what normally happens if this is your first time listening to One More Run, this was set up kind of like a book club. Like we pick a different thing to play each month, and then we hopefully get to play more games than we might normally, because I always had the problem of just like the big pile of shame of games that I think I should play, and then I never played any of them. So doing this podcast is helping me work through that. Normally we kind of pick a theme, like the person who's picking the next game sets a theme, and then the other hosts kind of pitch games within that theme. But Cheese had a slightly different idea for next time. Cheese, did you want to introduce what we're doing next time?
Yeah, y'all gave me the power, and I'm exercising my authority. So a while back, we were talking about run-based games, and for some reason, there's a game that I played as a kid that a lot of people in the United States may have played called Oregon Trail. And I was thinking about this old retro game and how it's like, oh man, it's like the first iteration was made in the 70s. And I was thinking like, oh, this must be like the first run-based game or something. But, after thinking about it more, run-based games have just been around forever, right? It's not anything new. But it is a game where, I guess for a little bit of background, it's just about the American story of settlers on the East, and they get in an Oregon covered wagon, and they're going on the Oregon Trail to travel to the West Coast to chase a gold rush or something like that. And this was injected into the U.S. education system for some reason. It was on a lot of computers when I was in school in the 80s and 90s. But anyways, this game, it just seems like a good run-based game. I guess we can talk about it more next episode, but I figured it'd be fun that a lot of games are kind of spawned off of this. Some are direct clones, some are just heavily inspired. So I gave you all some criteria, and I was hoping that what we could do was each of us picks an Oregon Trail like game. And each of us can maybe play the original Oregon Trail for a little bit and then play our own assignment after that. And then maybe next episode we can meet up and compare and contrast about it. So I'll pass it along. But first, I had some criteria that I think would I just classified as an Oregon Trail like. So it's a game where you start off with a party of characters and a vehicle that you have to shepherd along. And the vehicle is acting almost like a character in the game that you have to maintain. It should have a run-based structure with a semi-linear path to a fixed endpoint, the Oregon Trail. At the beginning, you need to allocate a party and resources to prepare for your journey. And then the game's got to include the journey as a focus. Like, what are you doing along the way? There's random events that happen. And then finally, an aspect of permadeath, because a big part about the Oregon Trail is, Jimmy died of typhoid or whatever, and then you put a little tombstone on the ground. So that's the kind of the criteria I threw out there. So,
well, anyway, from Cheese's very thoughtfully curated menu of Oregon Trail likes, I thought I wanted to play 80 Days. I think I had heard Joe say they liked it a lot, multiple times, and it also looked fun. So I guess I'll play that.
I'm going to be looking at Keep Driving because I wanted to play this recently anyway. I did check; it doesn't quite fit the fixed end of the route criteria that you had, Cheese. It does have a goal to like get to a concert or something. I think there is a way that I think there's like a sandboxy thing where you can change the goal, but I'm going to play it like Oregon Trail and I'm going to just try and reach the goal that they set me rather than like a sandbox game. But it's you're kind of like you're driving to a concert and it's basically a road trip simulator, and you meet like you have to manage your money as you go along. It's like a just side view of your car driving along in this pixel art game. It looked interesting. I don't know. It's had very mixed reviews, but I thought it felt like it was quite close to what Oregon Trail was. Although I don't think there's any mini games where you have to like get out and like shoot turkeys with a bow or anything like that.
I looked through a few, and there's one I had played it a little bit in the past, but there's a game called it's so hard to pronounce this. So instead of Oregon Trail, it's called Oregon Trail. And it's heavily inspired from the original DOS version, but it's about zombies. So you're doing a little zombie trail across the US instead. So that's the one that I'm gonna revisit.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. I'm looking forward to this. It's nice to do a different sort of thing, and it's a different kind of genealogy because obviously we call these games roguelikes because they're based on Rogue, and Rogue is kind of how do we do D&D for one person on a computer, and that's where it comes from originally, and that's kind of where we get the genre name. But Oregon Trail feels like it's one of the ancestors of this type of modern game, and probably leans a little bit more towards simulating real things and being a story engine, whereas Rogue is much more like, hey, we're going to go in a dungeon and try not to die. And it's like all of the games we've been looking at fit somewhere in between those extremes. So it's going to be nice to take a look at some games that maybe have a little bit more narrative and are a little bit more focused on trying to give you a sense of moving through a real place. Speaking of moving through a real place, we have reached nearly the end of the podcast, which is not really a real place. It's more of a conceptual place. If anyone wants to plug anything that they're doing or tell people about the games they're working on or anything like that, if you're able to, Dan, you're not going to be with us this next time because you're working on something big. Are you allowed to tell us about that?
Well, it's mainly like a freelance thing that is going to take up like the next couple months. It's not my own project, so it is under an NDA. I can't really plug it.
I thought you were going to just do a really neat segue into plugging your game and pretending that was the reason. That was. Well,
I mean, I don't want to lie. That's already done. It's already done, and it's bloody brilliant. It's on consoles. Deathboard Battle of the Bands, baby. PC, Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, it's on everything.
I had streamed it for a couple of hours like last week. I had a lot of fun with that.
Thank you.
Despite being it containing so much JRPG DNA and me being the ultimate JRPG hater. But yeah, fantastic. Just like really funny game.
Joe, me too.
Lots
I'm not a big fan of JRPGs, but like whenever I see video and clips from Death Bulge, like it is like so up my alley for having
Looks so
like so
good.
many
It's crazy.
goofy animations and characters. It's just a very bespoke adventure. I think it's so cool. Yeah.
It's so funny, and also it's got like the combat system that's there. It's got some unique elements that play into the music theme quite well, and yeah, like the art direction is just like kind of Newgrounds energy coming out the wazoo, which I'm very much into.
I wasn't prepared for this like group applause.
Yeah. We're a reverse cult. We love Bob Mute as you do.
For me,
Sorry.
my buddy and I are working on a game called Worm, WYRM. We got a Steam page up. We're still working towards getting a demo out there. But if you like puzzle games that are kind of like, not exactly Sudoku, but like a line drawing game like The Witness and things like that, we've got a mind-bending, wormy adventure that we're working toward.
You call it a worm bending adventure?
Well, worm bending, yeah.
Worm bending. I'm getting back into drawing more frequently again. We'll see what happens. It's a little early right now, but you should go check out these other folks' games.
Keep posting it. Keep drawing it. I'm making a game called Golem Gourmet. I've called it a Roguevania. That was one of the
Is that
available
allowed?
tags.
That's crazy.
That's a tag
crazy.
they have. But yeah, it's like a weird mix of Spelunky and Blueprints. You're like building a Metroidvania in a platformer using a deck of cards. And as always, if you want to support this podcast and keep us doing what we're doing, then head over to patreon.com/Indie Game Clinic. This is an Indie Game Clinic podcast. We also do a book club podcast with books about game design. Currently actually reading probably the most relevant book to this podcast at the moment. It's called Next Level. It's written by Mike Cook, who is at Goldsmiths in the UK. He's like a procedural generation expert. He used to run a game jam called Proc Jam, and the idea was you make something that makes something. So I think I entered that back in like 2015 or something, and I made a mini game in that, and some people would make just generators. And he's written this book called Next Level, and it's all about procedural generation. It's superb. Like I'm plugging his book now. Well, it does a theory chapter where it's like, hey, this is how Perlin noise works, or this is how this type of randomization works, or this is like an algorithm for drawing a wiggly line. And then it will go into a chapter with a historical example of like a famous game that uses that type of randomization. But it's written in this like A-B format where it's got like a very kind of approachable pop side chapter about some concept from maths or computing, and then it applies it to the historical example, and it's really good. Yeah, that's over on the Game Developers Library. Go and check that out as well. Dan, good luck with your secret thing that you're working on. And Shannon and Tom, thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward to not going to Oregon, to going wherever else
I'm gonna put
trip.
everybody's name on a tombstone. I'm very excited.
Oh my gosh. Give me the heebie-jeebies.